This happened about 2 years ago. I work a logistics job out of Roanoke, Virginia, and I hadn't taken a real vacation in nearly 4 years. My manager finally told me I needed to use my paid time off or lose it. So I blocked off 5 days in late October and rented a small cabin tucked away in the mountains of West Virginia.
Welcome to True Terror Narrative.
It was exactly what I wanted. A one-bedroom cabin with a wood stove and a small deck overlooking an endless wall of trees. According to the listing, the property sat on 12 private acres, 7 miles off Route 39, with the nearest neighbor more than a mile away. The promise of complete isolation was what convinced me to book it. I arrived on a Thursday afternoon, just as the last light of day slipped behind the ridgeline. The host had already texted me the lockbox code, so there was no one waiting to greet me. It was just the cabin, the crisp mountain air, and the silence. I unpacked my bags, lit a fire in the wood stove, cooked myself a simple dinner, and within an hour I felt months of stress beginning to melt away. The quiet in those mountains was unlike anything I'd experienced before. It wasn't merely the absence of sound, it had weight, as though the wilderness itself was holding its breath. Around 7 that evening, I carried my dinner onto the deck. By then, darkness had completely swallowed the forest. The trees stood like black walls in every direction, while the ridge above was only a darker shadow against the night sky. After finishing my meal, I remained outside for a while, doing nothing but listening. That's when I heard footsteps. 3 slow, deliberate steps echoed from the far end of the porch. They were heavy enough to make the wooden boards groan beneath the weight. Then, silence. I turned toward the sound. The porch light only illuminated half the deck, leaving the rest consumed by darkness. I waited, expecting another step, another creak, anything. Nothing. The forest had gone completely still in that unsettling way nature sometimes does when something unseen is nearby. After nearly a minute, I cautiously walked to the edge of the deck and aimed my phone's flashlight toward the tree line. Nothing but rows of dark tree trunks disappearing into the mountain. I convinced myself it had been a deer. The deck sat almost level with the ground, right beside the woods. Animals probably wandered through all the time. Satisfied with that explanation, I went back inside, locked the door, and tried to forget about it. Around 10 that night, with only glowing embers left in the wood stove, I climbed into bed and quickly fell asleep. I woke suddenly at exactly 2:17 a.m. I remember the time because I checked my phone the instant my eyes opened. Something was moving directly beneath the floor. It wasn't the frantic scratching of a trapped animal. It was slow, deliberate. A dragging sound, followed by the heavy shift of something large repositioning itself beneath the cabin. Earlier that day, I'd noticed the Crawlspace vents running along the foundation. There couldn't have been more than 2 feet of clearance beneath the floor. I sat perfectly still in bed for almost 2 minutes, listening. Then the noise stopped. Trying to convince myself I was overreacting, I pulled on my boots, grabbed my flashlight, and stepped outside. When I walked around to the side of the cabin, my stomach dropped. The Crawlspace vent cover had been removed. It wasn't bent or broken. It wasn't lying on the ground. It had been carefully leaned against the foundation wall, as though someone had deliberately taken it off without making any noise. I crouched down and shined my flashlight into the opening. All I could see was packed dirt and old wooden beams disappearing into darkness. The light didn't reach far enough. Again, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe a groundhog had worked the panel loose over time. Maybe it wasn't anything. I went back inside, locked the back door and stood in the kitchen trying to calm myself. Then the door handle moved. Someone outside gave it one hard pull. Silence followed. I slowly looked through the glasses of the back door. At the edge of the tree line, about 30 feet away, stood a person. They weren't hiding. They were partially behind a tree, but positioned in a way that made it obvious they wanted me to see them. They had been standing there, watching. Neither of us moved. We simply stared at each other. After what felt like an eternity, the figure took one slow step backward into the darkness of the trees. Then they vanished. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my keys, ran to my truck, and drove away at 2:30 in the morning. I left everything behind. The next morning I filed a police report. 2 officers returned to the cabin to investigate. About an hour later, one of them called me. The Crawlspace vent hadn't been removed from the outside. It had been pushed open from the inside. Fresh scratch marks covered the wooden framing where the panel had been forced loose. Hidden behind one of the support beams, they discovered food wrappers, a water bottle, folded clothing, and other belongings. Someone had been living beneath that cabin, not for a single night, for several days at least. They never identified who it was. Even now, 2 years later, that's the part I can't stop thinking about. While I cooked dinner, they were underneath me. While I stood on the deck enjoying the silence I'd driven 3 hours to find, they were underneath me. While I slept, believing I was completely alone, only 6 inches of wooden floor separated us. And if they hadn't chosen to let me know they were there, I never would have found out.